Is this a great game or what? With the Hall of Famer Tim Kurkjian. I'm his son, Jeff Kurkjian, and thanks for coming back for another episode. Dad, we're in the basement again, in the basement studio back together, which is so great and so fitting because filming this today on Monday, June the 2nd, which across Major League Baseball is a very important day for the game, but also for our family. It's Lou Gehrig Day.
Right, and let's be clear now. This is the 100th anniversary of the Lou Gehrig streak basically beginning. As you know, Jeff, on June the 1st, 1925, Lou Gehrig was used as a pinch hitter and flied out against Walter Johnson. I ever tell you I went to Walter Johnson High School? And then the next day, June the 2nd, is when he replaced Wally Pipp in the lineup, got 3 hits, and then never missed another game, and the streak ended at 2-1-3-0, which, of course, was broken many years later by Cal Ripken. Let's also understand that Lou Gehrig is the greatest first baseman of all time, and with all apologies to Jimmy Fox, Albert Pujols, and everyone else, there is not a close second to Lou Gehrig. You can make a case he's one of the 4 greatest hitters, like the Mount Rushmore of hitters in baseball history. That's how great Lou Gehrig was.
And when you think about it, too, Dad, June the 2nd also has significance because it's the day he passed away. So
Right.
June the 2nd, not only the day he started his very famous long-standing streak until Cal Ripken Jr., it's also the day he died, which is just so beautiful is not the right word, but you understand what I'm saying.
Right. It's all so symmetrical.
Yes.
And on June the 3rd, which is today, the day this is actually running, in 1932, Lou Gehrig hit 4 home runs in one game.
Wow.
And he hit them consecutively. And according to all the reports, he almost hit a 5th home run in that game. And his teammate, Tony Lazzeri, hit for the cycle in that game. So we had a 4-homer game and a cycle in the same game on the same team.
That's unbelievable. And if you ever are bored, members of our family, go look at how many RBIs Lou Gehrig had in his career. But then keep in mind who he was batting after, because back in those days, as we know, he was number 4 because he batted 4th in the lineup. Number 3 was this guy named Babe Ruth, who was hitting 714 home runs in his career.
And 60 in one season. And go look at the RBI total by Lou Gehrig batting behind Babe Ruth that year, which means at least 60 times he came to the plate with nobody on base.
It's and not including the times he probably came up as the first batter in the 2nd inning after a 3-and-out. It's just unbelievable to think of the man, the player. He passed away before he was even 40 years old. And that was something that blew my mind last year when we talked about Lou Gehrig Day. You know, you just see the photos, you see the man, you see the black and white, and you just think he's 50, right? You just immediately think he has to be this guy who was this season. But no, he was taken from us way too soon. And obviously, we have a very personal connection to ALS. Back in 2023, my dad's brother, my Uncle Matt, passed away from ALS. And so we're going to leave that there for now. And tomorrow on the feed, I'm actually going to kind of lead an interview with you, Dad, and my Uncle Andy, my dad's oldest brother. So it's Andy, Matt, and Tim. And Dad, both of your older brothers, Hall of Fame baseball players at Catholic University, great ball players in their day. Uncle Andy could have decided to go pro and try to make his way up the minors, decided to go to a little school called MIT instead.
And became a PhD in electrical engineering. I think he picked the right path.
And I have to give you credit, Dad, because when I recommended that this be our interview this week, instead of getting a Hall of Famer or all the great guests we have, you have always said you don't want this show to be about you. It's about the game. But I really think our family, the people who listen, are going to really enjoy hearing stories about Uncle Matt from you and from Uncle Andy, and, of course, stories about your upbringing and all of that. It's going to be a great episode.
Well, thanks, Jeff. And I just commend baseball again for having Lou Gehrig Day. Remember last year we were in Philadelphia. We interviewed Sam Hilliard. We interviewed Aaron Nola. We interviewed John Shambi, Sarah Langs. We did a lot of interviews with the players and people who have been affected by this disease. And all we can do is try to bring more awareness to it and try to find a cure.
Absolutely. So make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening right now for free. Share the episode with a friend, and we would love you to join us tomorrow with Andy, Tim, and Jeff Kurkjian. All three of us on the podcast at the same time. All right, Dad, let's jump right in to our takeaways for this week.
Well, first off, we're in June, Jeff, and I'm just hoping that June is as noteworthy as May was, because that was an amazing month. I have a million things. We're not going to look back. We're going to look ahead. But Freddie Freeman hit .410 in the month of May, and he wasn't even the best player on his team, basically, because Shohei Ohtani hit 15 homers in the month.
Wow.
Aaron Judge had another amazing month, and the poor Rockies won 4 games in the month of May and got to June basically with a 9-50 record. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But one of the takeaways is that the Royals on Monday called up Jack Caglione, who went to the University of Florida, the 6th overall pick in the draft last year. He was a two-way player at Florida, and he got signed by the Royals, and they're calling him up. Their outfield production has been arguably the worst in the major leagues this year. They need a big bat. He's 22 years old. He has torn it up at Double-A and Triple-A. He's 6'5", 250. I watched him take BP this spring in Arizona.
Wait,
it was
6'5", 250.
Breathtaking. Woo. He is now, they've moved him basically from first base to the outfield because they need some punch in the outfield. I just want to remind you that Alex Gordon was the last Jack Caglione, and they brought him up to be the next George Brett, which he never became, but he was a very good player, came up as a third baseman, and he got a standing ovation as he walked to home plate from the on-deck circle in his first major league game. So he hadn't even taken an at-bat, and he got a standing ovation. That's how much the fans in Kansas City loved George Brett, of course, Alex Gordon, and now Jack Caglione is the next in a long line of really good players to come up. Should be fun to watch.
Speaking of the Royals, Dad, did you see what celebrity ran in the hot dog race at Kauffman Stadium?
Yes, Paul Rudd did that. And
the man who never ages.
Right, and I'm sure he ran better in that than I did in the hot dog race in Milwaukee, but we're going to get Paul Rudd on the podcast. Good luck with that.
I texted you, Dad, and I said, we got to get him on because you ran as a sausage in Milwaukee. He ran as a hot dog. I mean, if you're Paul Rudd's PR guy and that's my sell to you in an email, you got to say, well, we got to clear Paul's schedule here.
All right. Well, let's hope this works out.
Well, as Paul Rudd once said in the great movie Anchorman, 60% of the time it works every time. So let's hope that maybe that can ring true for us getting Paul Rudd on the show. He does guest on a lot of podcasts.
Right.
I know we're just a mom and pop shop in the basement here.
Brick Tamlin? Was that
No, that's Steve Carell's character.
Right, Steve Carell's character.
Yeah, Steve Carell was Brick Tamlin, right. And he was Brian Fantana.
Oh, jeez.
Brian Fantana.
All right.
That
was a very funny
Remember
show.
when he was reporting live from the San Diego Zoo?
Right.
And he was mad because the panda was giving birth, but
right.
he couldn't see. So he said, hold on one second. Get out here, you panda jerk. Live on television. Brian Fantana, one of our favorites of all time. All right, back to the takeaways.
All right, so Chris Sale struck out batter number 2,500 of his career. Ooh. He did it in 2,026 innings, fewest innings ever for someone to get to 2,500 strikeouts. Let's be clear, though, this is a strikeout era. Nothing against Chris Sale. He's a great pitcher, and he's having, won the Cy Young last year, but strikeout rate's a little higher now than it was, say, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Things have really changed.
He's my wife's favorite pitcher besides Ranger Suarez.
Because everything's on sale?
Everything's on sale.
Oh, that's right.
She loves shopping.
Yeah, Emily, she if it's marked down, she's going to buy it.
She's going to buy it,
right.
Yeah.
She bought an elevator the other day, which I thought was probably a bit much. Okay. Also, as far as milestones, Max Muncy of the Dodgers hit home run number 200. 195 of them have come with the Dodgers. So the interesting part is he had 5 home runs in 215 at-bats for the A's. And I spoke to the guys with the A's when they let him go. And I was told he's a 4A player. That's somewhere between AAA and the big leagues. And he has no defensive position. So the A's released him. okay? And then he's gone on to be really, really good for the Dodgers. So he told me this. First off, he almost went to Korea to play baseball after the A's let him go, and the Dodgers got him first and ended up, he's been a very productive player for them. But he told me that he went back and worked out with his old high school team, and that kept him sharp in between jobs with the Oakland A's and the Los Angeles Dodgers. He worked out with his high school team just to try to stay sharp. And look what's happened to him. It's really, really cool.
That is so neat. I love that. Imagine those high schoolers being able to say, like, hey, I guess he was just working out with us.
Right. And speaking of the Dodgers, Jeff, I just need to bring this up. Mookie Betts fractured a toe on his right foot because he was walking around without his shoes on. Now, Jeff, it was in the middle of the night. He was going to the bathroom, okay? So he's off the hook. But what did your grandfather, my father, Pop, tell me every single day of my life?
You've got to put your shoes on because you're going to stub your toe and then you're not going to be able to play. And then I'm going to be upset with you because you can only injure yourself doing something athletic.
Right. My dad told me on a daily basis, me and Andy and Matt, put your shoes on wherever we were. Okay. You got a game tonight, whether we had a game tonight or not. You have a game tonight. You don't want to stub your toe on the couch, break a toe, and not be able to play tonight. And I still say it to you once in a while, but your sister Kelly, when she was in high school, is a really good high school basketball player. I used to tell her all the time, put your shoes on. You got a game tonight. And I just told her that the other day, and she just looked at me like, what's wrong with you? I'm 30, 34.
I got 2 kids at home.
Right. I'm 33 years old. I got 2 kids at home. I don't play basketball anymore. I don't have to put my shoes on. Lesson learned. Put your shoes on. I keep my shoes on almost 24 hours a day. Unless I'm in the shower or in bed, my shoes are on. So what else do you got for the takeaway?
So for me, Dad, I don't know if you saw Elly Cruz hit a home run that was nearly a foul ball, by the way. Crushed it in the StatCast era. Farthest home run he hit this season. And it came the day after the passing of his sister. Now, for me, that just screams bigger than baseball. And there's always moments we have on the field that I think are bigger than baseball. Ones that come to mind, right? Like Derek Jeter hitting a walk-off as his final hit of his season. At home,
right.
And, I mean, what's more fitting than hitting a walk-off in the style he did? How many times did he hit a ball like that to reach first, right? Or... oh, gosh, one of my favorite bigger than baseball moments, D. Gordon. Oh, this one might make me cry. After the passing of his teammate, he goes...
Jose Fernandez.
Jose Fernandez passes away, unfortunately, tragically, very young. D. Gordon, leadoff hitter for the Marlins, goes up to bat, bats from the opposite side of the plate in honor of his teammate, takes a pitch... and then switches, right? And says, okay. Now,
well, he starts right-handed, but he's a left-handed hitter, and then hit a missile into the right field stands for a home run.
And he said, I've never hit a ball that hard in my life. He's a dinky little leadoff hitter. He's a great major league player, and he's crying, rounding first base, because he's saying, and he points up to the sky, and he did it for his friend. He did it for his teammate. That was a moment that was bigger than baseball. And I wanted to ask you, Dad.
Jeff, there are so many of those moments. This is the beauty of baseball, among the many beauties, is these amazing coincidences and these amazing stories that happen. And you just go, how could that possibly happen? I have a million of them. I'll just give you a few. Remember Stephen Vogt, who we've had on the podcast and everything else? His children, in his final home game, his children came to the microphone at the PA address and announced, now batting, our dad, Stephen Vogt. And then, of course, he hit a home run. I mean, you can't make that stuff up. You can't script that stuff. Dallas Braden, who was on the podcast this year, lost his mother to cancer in high school. He is pitching on Mother's Day as a tribute to his mom. His grandmother, Peggy, is in the crowd, and he pitches a perfect game. And Peggy, of course, comes running down afterwards. They have this incredible hug on the field. It was one of the great moments that we've ever seen.
And in that story, Dad, that was 2 guests on the podcast, Dallas Braden and Peggy, who joined us at the end of the interview.
Peggy
That was my favorite moment maybe of the season. We had stopped recording, and we had to start recording again because Dallas Braden said, hey, Tim, somebody wants to say hi to you. And that's the way we wrapped up that episode, which was so special.
And last thing, Hank Greenberg, Hall of Fame first baseman, one of the great hitters ever. On May 7th, 1941, he hit 2 homers for the Detroit Tigers, and the next day he enlisted in the Army. And he knew he was going in the next day, and he hit 2 home runs the day before he went into the Army. Then he comes back after a second tour, and it's July 1st, 1945. And in his first game back, after serving our country, after the Germans had surrendered, his first game, he hit another home run. Now, don't tell me that that's just some coincidence. This is where life is way bigger than baseball. Baseball is way bigger than life. Those are just 3 stories. There are a million stories like that. And the Elly De La Cruz one, tugs at your heart for sure.
Well, I mean, not as big as any of those stories, but even Ronald Acuna Jr. this year. Right. First pitch he sees from being back from injury, he hits a homer. Right. Like him or hate him, that's beautiful to have a guy back. You never want to beat a team that's injured.
Right, and I like Ronald Acuna Jr., and Chipper Jones told me once he is the most talented player I've ever seen wear a Major League uniform. That's what Chipper Jones, Hall of Famer, said about Ronald Acuna Jr.
Let's jump in, Dad, to the Quirkjians of what's going on.
All right, there were a million of them this week. I'm going to try to keep these short. But the Rays, Jeff, got a complete game from Zach Littell. So they went 647 games without a complete game. 647 until Zach Littell threw one the other night. So that's the second longest streak of all time, baseball history, without a complete game. The longest was also by the Rays, 731 games. Wow. So the Rays went 731 games without a complete game. Then they got one, and then they went 647 complete games without, and then they got.
They were one after another.
After another.
That's crazy.
So they had 2 complete games in roughly 1,200 games. They have 106 complete games in franchise history now. Zach Littell's was 106. And just for context, Greg Maddux had 109. Now, that's not even close. Right. Not even close to the record. Not even within shouting distance. But he's somebody that we know. He had 109 by himself. The Rays have 106 in their history. And Zach Littell gave up 10 hits in a complete game. So the last time any pitcher did that was Johnny Cueto in 2022. Usually you give up 10 hits.
You're out.
They don't let you complete the game. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. Also, the A's got through May, and they had allowed 10 or more runs in a game 14 times. Okay, so since 1930, the only team to allow 10 or more runs in a game more times than the A's were, of course, the A's in 2023, who allowed 10 runs or more in a game in 2023 before the month of June. So they were kind of breaking their own record. Also, as far as runs scored goes, Saturday night, Jeff, we had a 16-run game, a 17-run game, and an 18-run game. If the Rays scored 16, the Brewers had 17, the Yankees had 18, or the Dodgers had 18
against the
Yankees. And the last time there was a 16, 17, 18, which is exactly the 3. I mean, I was just looking for 15 or above.
Right.
16, 17, 18 happened on April 29th, 2006. So we love that.
That is sooner than I thought it would be, honestly. 20 years? I mean, 16, 17, 18 specifically. Right. That's pretty nuts.
Right. The Nationals the other day batted against the Diamondbacks.
Oh,
First, you remember this game? First 11 batters reached base.
Yeah.
First 11 in the game. The last team to do that was the 2003 Red Sox. The Nationals scored 9 runs before anyone was retired. And that's only interesting because the Astros have scored 14 runs, at least through Sunday, in the first inning all year. The Nationals scored 9 runs in the first inning without making it out.
And, Dad, the crazy thing about that game was in the top of the first inning, they scored 10 runs. And then in the top of the second inning, they scored 1. And they finished with 11 runs. So they didn't score for 7 more innings.
And still had 11 runs.
And still had 11 runs. And my wife, Emily, who we've said before, God bless her heart, she is a growing baseball fan. She asks all the right questions. And she looks at me, and I told her that stat. And it was crazy because she goes, imagine if you were going to that game and you were 20 minutes late. You show up, your team's down 10-0. In the top of the first inning, your team hasn't even batted yet. And Brandon Pfaadt was the pitcher for the Diamondbacks.
Right.
Dad, he gave up 8 runs, and his line was 0 innings pitched because he didn't retire a batter.
Right. That will run your ERA up, that's for sure. All right, so on the other side, the Mariners became the first team in Major League history to lose consecutive extra inning games by 6 or more runs. Think about that for a second. Now, Jeff, the record is just, it doesn't matter when the extra inning games come. They could come a month apart, but they came in back-to-back games, extra innings, and they lost them both by 6 or more runs. And that's never happened in Major League history. Of course, you get a boost because you start the extra inning now with a runner at second base, but that's still pretty amazing. And this is a tribute to our friend Steve Sparks, who was on the podcast. So I'm listening to the game while I'm driving to Bristol on Saturday night, just another lonely 6-hour ride all by myself, listening to the greatest invention ever, Sirius XM radio, where I can listen to any game that I want. So I'm
driving the greatest invention ever, a hybrid engine getting like 70 miles to the gallon.
It's great.
For you.
So
you get gas once a month and you drive like 10,000 miles.
Let's see if you can figure this out, Jeff. So Steve Sparks gives this note on the air, and it has something to do with Steve Sparks, obviously, because he gave the note, and it has something to do with Steve Russian, who was also one of our guests. The attendance of the game that night was, concentrate, 33,033. So 33,033.
Palindrome.
It's a palindrome. So Steve Sparks, who's now the weirdest man in the world, and I love him so much for this, pointed that out. It's a palindromic attendance tonight, 33,033. Same backwards as it is forward. I got such a kick out of that. I'm driving 70 miles an hour. I had to text him. Palindrome, yes.
I'm sure he was so flattered because when we had him on the podcast, Dad, all he wanted as a major league player and a major league broadcaster was to be told by Tim Kurkjian that he is, in fact, a seam head.
Right. and he will come up again in this podcast because I have another note in this podcast. All right. A couple more things. Kodai Senga faced Antonio Senzatella, and it's the first time in Major League history that 2 pitchers who start their last name with S-E-N started against each other in a Major League game. Does that surprise you?
I was going to ask you that note, and I'm really upset because I thought that might have been too deep cut, but I was looking at that. S-E-N, swear.
I thought that
I swear on your father's grave, hand to God. I look at every matchup now, Dad. I'm totally cursed. I have no free time.
I have corrupted you
because I'm scrolling through, clicking, and I say them out loud now.
Senga, Senzatella. S-E-N, never happened before in Major League history.
I say them out loud, Dad, and then I looked on the lineups because I wanted to see if anybody had an S-E-N that one of them would be facing. Right. I know that's a stretch too. But now, Dad, I say all of the matchups out loud because there could be like a pun or something.
Right.
Like I got to give a big shout out to Todd Addington, member of the family.
Right.
He said, I used to only look at matchup pitching for the Cardinals. Now you have me looking at all of the matchups. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, he said, and I love that. I love and hate it all at the same time. He said, on Sunday, June 1st, Red Sox-Braves, the matchup was, and he said, this might be a stretch, Garrett Crochet against Bryce Elder. So it's an Elder Crochet matchup. And who do we associate doing crochet work? Elderly grandmothers. It's a stretch, but I blame you guys for making me look for that.
Todd,
I think that's a good one.
I love it, Todd. I love anyone who's looking at things a little differently because if you look closely enough, funny, bizarre things come up all the time. Now, this is the note of the week, Jeff. Julie Shavodian, Julie Townsend, my cousin, your aunt, whatever we call her, we're not sure. But Julie is a great baseball fan, and she's a great Dodger fan. So she is now looking up arcane baseball statistics because she listens to the podcast every week now.
Yep.
She hadn't missed an episode. So now she's sending me bizarre things. So she sent me this the other day. Ha-Seong Kim of the Dodgers became the first player ever to get 4 hits in a game, a home run, an unassisted double play, and an assist from the outfield. So I say to Julie, where in the world did you see this? Here's what she said. I saw it on Facebook. What does that mean on Facebook? I thought that's just when you talk to your friends. Well, as it turns out, she must have been looking at OptaStats. I don't know who the people are at OptaStats, but they are great because they come up with some bizarre stuff. So I said, Julie, I don't know if I can prove this. So here's what she says. Call Frank from the Alliance. So my own cousin is telling me to call Frank from the Alliance. So I called Frank from the Alliance. 2 hours later, he calls me back and says, I can't find anyone back to 1900. So I sent it back to Julie, and she writes me back, I love Frank from the Alliance.
He was one of our secret guests. Right. I love him. Right. I have to give a big shout out to a Mark Chumbley, Dad. He sent us a Quirkjian, not necessarily relevant, so to speak, in this age, but I just thought it was so cool because it's got a basketball tie-in and we're going into the NBA Finals, right? He wrote that Tony Gwynn, in his 4 years at San Diego State, had more assists at 596 than strikeouts, 434, in his 20-year Major League Baseball career.
That is so beautiful that somebody would look at it that way. Tony Gwynn was a great college basketball player, all-time assist leader at San Diego State when he retired. And I've told you before, Jeff, tiniest hands I've ever seen on a major league player. Couldn't palm a basketball in a million years. Was a great player. So anyone who looks at Tony Gwynn at the end, a little bit heavy and everything else, don't ever forget how fast a runner he was, what a great outfielder he was, and what a great point guard he was. Tony Gwynn's strikeout high for any season was 40. He struck out 3 times in a game once in his career, and he had 297 3-hit games and 1 3-strikeout game. So thank you for that. That's so beautiful.
And I know I heard you on Dan Le Batard last week, and you had talked a little bit about iPad and watching your swing and pitchers, going through their motions and their bullpens and following it. But Tony Gwynn was ahead of his time. He was a student of the game. And listen, great athlete, not taking anything away from that. But even you, on the piece you did after he passed away, had said, he's a great athlete, great hitter, but he was a student. He was smarter than everybody else around him.
Jeff, imagine a VCR tape, those big clunky tapes. He used to have those tapes. His wife would tape the games for him, and he would take a trunk full of tapes with him on the road to watch the pitchers that he'll be facing. And he had to stand on a metal chair in the clubhouse because there's no technology back then in the mid-'80s, and he would have to hook everything up like me trying to hook up a cable TV at my house, which we all know is the worst experience of all time. You're the best at it. I'm the all-time worst. But he would be hooking things up by himself and then would sit there on one of those metal chairs and watch the at-bats that he was going to take that night against Shane Reynolds or whoever it was. Tony Gwynn was so far ahead of his time when it came to videotape and everything else. He was like nobody else.
So one last Quirkjian from a member of our family. Rick emailed in and said, Chris Taylor of the Angels, Dodgers, Mariners, his first and 100th home run were grand slams. So I looked into this because I wanted to confirm it, right? He has 6 grand slams in his career. This is Chris Taylor. 4 of them, Dad, came 1 through 11. So out of his first 11 major league home runs, 4 of them were grand slams. And then he didn't hit another one for 89 home runs until his 100th. And then he hit his 6th grand slam as his 101st.
Jeff, you really are starting to think like me.
4 out of 11, almost half, or a little more than a third of his home runs were grand slams, and then 89 later to hit 2 more.
Willie Mays hit 8 grand slams. Duke Snider, who hit over 400 homers, had 5 Grand Slams. Al Kaline, who had 399 homers, had 3 Grand Slams. Derek Jeter had 1 in his career. Pete Rose had 1 in his career. And Chris Taylor has 6. How do you explain that?
Can't explain it. That's why we love this game. Okay, so coming up next, we're going to do On This Date in Baseball History. We're also going to hear from a new team, Tim, which I'm really looking forward to. And we're going to open up the cards. We haven't done that in a while.
Right.
It's coming up next on Is This a Great Game or What? All right, Dad, we're back. Is this a great game or what? Let's jump right into On This Date in Baseball History.
So on this date in 1995, Pedro Martinez pitched 9 perfect innings, but the score in San Diego, but the score was tied after 9 innings. So he goes out to start the 10th inning. So he's the second pitcher joining Harvey Haddix ever to have a perfect game through 9 and then move on from there. Harvey Haddix, of course, pitched 12 perfect innings with the Pirates. And first batter, Bip Roberts doubled, and they took Pedro Martinez out of the game. And Joe Kerrigan, then the pitching coach for the Expos, walked him down the right field line the next day just to remind him what an amazing pitching performance that was. Now, he doesn't get credit for a no-hitter because it wasn't a no-hitter. It certainly wasn't a perfect game, even though he pitched 9 perfect innings. He didn't even get the win in the game. So Joe Kerrigan just wanted to make sure that Pedro recognized that's one of the greatest pitch games in baseball history, and it's kind of lost because he didn't have a no-hitter, perfect game. He didn't even win the game. I just bring this up in the 1 in 1 billion chance it could happen. What if that happened today, Jeff?
Oh, my gosh.
Guy pitches 9 perfect innings. He goes out to pitch the 10th, and he looks around, and there's a runner at second base to start the 10th inning.
Oh, I couldn't even. I didn't even think about it in that way.
That's
I was just
the
thinking
point.
about a pitcher actually making it 9 innings.
All right, so Jeff, let's say Pedro Martinez does this in 2025, which he would have been certainly capable of doing. First guy grounds out to second. Next guy hits a sacrifice fly, 1-0. Next guy strikes out. Pedro Martinez faces 30 batters, retires them all, yet it's not a perfect game. He loses the game 1-0, and there's just has to be a giant asterisk next to it because you can't have a perfect game if somebody's on base.
Yeah,
even though
they to second, moves the guy over, sacrifice fly, scores him. They lose 1-0, and he never gave up a hit.
Right, never gave him a runner.
Never gave up
30
a runner.
batters faced. 30 retired. Look, I don't like the ghost runner at second. We've been clear about this, but this is why we shouldn't have it. What if by some miracle that happens? How are we going to explain that, Jeff? We're going to have the biggest asterisk in the history of sports if he doesn't get credit for anything there when he faced 30 batters, retired them all, and gets no credit for it.
In the words of our friends at Dan Le Batard, can you stop yelling at me, please? All right, you're getting a little angry here, Tim. We're seeing angry Tim.
All right. A couple of birthdays. 1939, Steve Dalkowski was born. Steve Dalkowski is, according to rumors, the hardest throwing pitcher of all time. And he was 5'9", okay?
Wow.
And he never played in the big leagues, but Cal Ripken Sr., Cal Jr.'s father, told me he caught Steve Dalkowski in the minor leagues, and he said, there's never been a harder thrower than Steve Dalkowski. Wow. And Rip Sr. told me once that he caught him in a minor league ballpark on the side when the lights were terrible, and he threw it so hard that Rip Sr., a great catcher, missed the ball, and it hit him right in the forehead at like 100 miles an hour. And Rip Sr. just shrugged it off and kept on catching.
This is also the Rip Sr. who took a power drill to a stub toe to release the pressure from his toenail.
Right. With son Jr. watching, and the blood came spurting out like old faithful.
Right.
He looked at his son with the pressure now, and he looks at his son and goes, ooh, that feels good. That's Rip Sr., and that's Steve Dalkowski.
Yeah, I can say, 31 years old, I don't think I've ever seen my dad handle a power drill, let alone
put it into his right big toenail. All right, 1977, Travis Hafner was born. So today he's 48 years old, one of my favorite players ever. For many reasons, very smart, wicked funny. So he was the valedictorian of his high school. I said, Travis, that is amazing. Tell me the story. I'm so impressed. He goes, well, you shouldn't be impressed. I'm from North Dakota. And he said, I said, how many kids were in your graduating class? He said, 8. So he said, we had 4 girls and 4 guys. And he said, the only thing easier than being one of the valedictorians was getting a date for the senior prom. Love Travis Hafner. So let's see how much you remember about Steve Sparks. His birthday is, Travis Hafner's birthday is June the 3rd.
June the 3rd, right.
So what does Steve Sparks do?
Putting me on the
What is
he loves birthdays.
Yes.
So
what is June?
6'3".
Right. How tall is Travis?
He 6'3"?
Of course.
Wow.
This is what I'm looking at now. Travis Hafner is born on June the 3rd, 6'3", and he's 6'3". And Monday, the day we're taping this, Raul Ibanez, one of my favorite players ever, I texted him because he was born on June the 2nd, 6'2", and he is 6'2".
Wow.
So I sent him that, and he goes, you look up the strangest statistics of anyone in history. And I said, well, this is a Steve Sparks original. I just love it. And last birthday, Jeff, is Lake Bacher of the Marlins.
Right.
Okay, so his first name is Lake, and today is his birthday. So in his honor, we are going to present the All Bodies of Water team because we have a guy named Lake who was born on this date in 1990.
Let's do it.
So he's one of the pitchers. Bobby C., spelled S-E-A-Y.
Got it.
Doug Creek, a left-handed reliever. Jim Poole, the late Jim Poole, who died of ALS last year. And Jeffrey Springs. So that's our 5-man pitching staff. Steve Lake is the catcher. You're allowed to use Lake twice as long as one is a first name and the other's last name. I make the rules here. These are my lists, okay?
Right.
Brooke Jacoby is the first baseman.
Okay,
He
Brooke,
usually played third, but I needed a first baseman. Ford Proctor, who played recently. You know what a Ford is? It's like a...
That's what I drive. Yeah.
Right. Brooks Robinson. Brooke and Brooks are different. And Brooks is a Hall of Famer, greatest defense.
Hey, listen, you make the rules. This is your game. You're playing by yourself. You don't need to explain it to me.
Right, now I'm going to have to explain this. Christian Arroyo is the shortstop. So when I looked up bodies of water on Google, Arroyo is the first body of water to come up. I have to read this. It is a channel or stream that runs only after rain. The rest of the time, it's dry. Had you ever heard that?
Yeah, well, I think you missed part of the definition. It also runs after an Alex Rodriguez, so that would be the only other thing he would run after.
Explain.
Remember the infamous tag running to first base? Alex Rodriguez slapped the ball out of his hand when he was trying to tag him on his way to first?
That was Bronson Arroyo.
Who did you say? Christian Arroyo. I thought we were still on pitching.
Hi, Jeff. You're off the show, okay?
Oh, gosh.
Look, for all the mistakes...
Can we make it Bronson Arroyo coming out of the pen?
I love it, Jeff. I love it. You had an Arroyo. We could have done that.
Could have done that.
That was
My
great.
bad.
And you got it right, the famous Red Sox Yankee.
Yeah, well, clearly. I mean, I thought I was the smartest guy in the room, and clearly not even
Jeff,
close.
I love it. I love it. You're trying, man. That's so good. All right, outfield, finally, Jason Bay.
Yep. Great
Simon Pond.
Yeah.
Your boy Brandon Marsh of the Phillies.
Got to do
and
it.
one of my favorites, he'll be the DH, Mickey Rivers. So that is
Mickey
our
Rivers.
all
Hey, do you
body...
have $5,000?
Well, now we have to clarify. First year covering the Rangers, 1982. I'm like 14 years old. Mickey Rivers in spring training asked me, Tim, hey, can you loan me $2,000? I'm making $13,000 a year. He's making $450,000. He asked me to loan him $2,000. I said, Mick, I'm making $13,000 a year. I don't have $2,000, but he makes the all body of water team.
He also faked an injury so his buddy can get a start on
George
opening
Wright.
day.
How about that? We love Mickey Rivers, the best.
All right, Dad. It's in the cards. Are you ready?
Yeah, I am.
I'm just going to be honest. I ran out of packs to rip, so I've just grabbed some cards from my storage area back behind us. So, I'm just going to rifle through these as quickly as we can. Ronald Acuna Jr.
All right, well, I'm just going to tell you the same thing that I told you earlier. Chipper Jones told me he is the most talented player I've ever seen to wear a major league uniform. Case closed. That's who Ronald Acuna Jr. is.
All right, let's go to Luis Ariz.
Won 3 straight batting titles and did it for 3 different teams. Nobody can get a hit better than that guy in the major leagues, except for this year because Aaron Judge is hitting almost 400.
I know, right? Aaron Nola. Oh, this is a cool poll. Can I take this one?
Yes.
So at this time last year, we did an ALS special episode from Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia. Aaron Nola, unfortunately, similar to me, lost his uncle to ALS. And he so amazingly joined us on the concourse before the game, way before the game, to talk about his uncle, to talk about his love of, giving back to the ALS community. And I just think that's really, really special. And you love hearing this stuff about Paul Skeens, right? Giving back to the Garri Sinise Foundation. Anytime you have players who believe in something, it's a beautiful thing.
And for every strikeout, he donates money to ALS. How about that?
That's so special. All right. Rafael Devers of the Red Sox.
Again, RBI machine. Remember, Jeff, started out 0 for 19 with 16 strikeouts, and he just passed the 50 RBI mark the other day. So I'm not real wild about the way he's gone about all this. I'm not playing third. I'm not playing first. I'm not DHing. But, man, he can hit.
And we've got Yoshi Yamamoto.
Oh, my goodness. So Yamamoto on Sunday night had a difficult time against the Yankees, but that guy is really, really good. And I need to give a shout out to Buster Olney here, because he scooped me on the air on Baseball Tonight on Sunday night, and he couldn't wait to do it. He and Sarah Langs came up with Yamamoto started against Ryan Yarborough of the Yankees, and they looked up, it was the 5th time since 1893 that starting pitchers with the last name starting with a Y started against each other in a major league game. Buster was just so thrilled to have come up with this because he knows how much I love this. He clearly stumped me. Good for you, Buster. That was a tremendous note.
That's impressive.
And then he sent me a note this morning. He said, I think we're both in need of therapy after going through that. And I had to write back, Buster, I know I need therapy. I don't know about you. So I did a podcast with him the other day, and this is my new favorite Buster Olney story, and it involves me more than him, unfortunately. We were talking about milking cows and all that. So I said that I milked cows one time in my life, Ferguson Farm with Kelly when she's in the 5th grade. And I said, and my cow he just didn't give up any milk. And Buster screams, Buster, who grew up on a dairy farm in Vermont, screams at me on the air, did you just say he? So I guess I had temporarily forgotten that only female cows give milk.
Dad, how did you not know that?
I just wasn't thinking clearly.
Okay, good.
I tried to.
Now I'm worried about when you took your daughter home for the very first time, your firstborn. Did you think you were going to feed her?
Yes.
You think mom was in charge of that?
Right. Meet the father. No, yeah, right. Never mind.
Yeah. Meet the parents.
Meet the parents, right.
I got nipples, Greg. Can you milk me? If you're going to go there, you got to go for it, Dad.
Yeah, it's so bad.
Is this the first time that word has been used on this podcast in 2 years?
Yeah.
Has to be.
I think so, right.
Oh, gosh. Okay. And last card, Dad. Sorry. We got so off track on it. It's in the cards. Cal Ripken Jr.
No way. Not on the... Yes, that's unbelievable. On the Lou Gehrig day, Cal Ripken comes up. And that was a pull, right?
That was a pull. I really did just grab a stack of cards. As I mentioned before, we've probably done some of these before because I don't have a fresh pack. We'll have to reach out to your friend at Topps, and get some more cards.
2,632 consecutive games. He broke Lou Gehrig's record, and I don't want to be corny about this, but the one person in the history of baseball who should come along and break the record set by the Iron Horse is Cal Ripken, because I've never met anyone who loved to play more than him. And as I've told you many times, Jeff, it's not just baseball. I played basketball with him way too many times, raging conflict of interest. But I told you a few years ago, Joe Orsulak, one of his teammates, who's in the Baltimore Orioles Baseball Hall of Fame, said he played against Ripken in ping pong one night. This isn't that long, a few years ago. And I didn't know that Joe Orsulak was like a 3-state ping pong champion in high school. And he said, I beat Junior in ping pong 24 straight games, and he would not leave my house until he beat me. And he beat me in the 25th game at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then he went home. So that's who Cal Ripken is, and that is the guy that passed Lou Gehrig for the most consecutive games ever played.
And fitting, Dad, tomorrow on your feed, listening right now, a very special interview I personally will be interviewing my dad and my uncle Andy because their middle brother, my uncle Matt, passed away from ALS in 2023, as we talked about in the top of the show, Dad. So it's going to be an emotional episode, but a great one to remember his memory, to talk about baseball, to talk about other people we know and love who have fought or are fighting this terrible, terrible disease. But Dad, I don't want to say this because it was such it was such a terrible experience with Uncle Matt, but I'm so honored to be a part of that community now. And I think of all families to go through it, a baseball family like ours, it's so fitting because we can use our voice and our platform to help raise awareness.
Absolutely. Kurkjian boys forever.
We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks so much for listening. And as always, thank you for being a part of our family.